Hi friends, I'm Scott Giles, and every Saturday afternoon at 2:30, I shoot a short 5 or 10-minute video about some aspect of life coaching or the hypnotic arts and sciences. Now, what I practice is technically called medical hypnosis. Medical hypnosis is scientifically based hypnotism with a orientation to health and well-being. So I make it a point to understand the science behind what I do. And much of what I do is dictated by outcomes data or research. Epigenetics is a new study. It's basically the holy grail that explains why medical hypnosis works. Now, the term epigenetics means above or on top of genetics. It concerns the factors that regulate how cells interact with DNA. It determines which potentials within the DNA become active. For example, the cells in your tongue have the exact same DNA as the cells in your hand. But what determines why the cell in your tongue became a tongue cell as opposed to a hand cell is that something came in on top of the DNA and controlled how it expressed its potential, so that the tongue cell became the tongue cell rather than the hand cell. It is possible to actually change the structure of DNA externally. For example, if you put certain chemicals into the body, it actually blocks certain genes from expression. And if you have certain medical conditions, it determines which genes get expressed too. In a lot of the work I do concerns people living with cancer. And one of the questions you ask when you are thinking about someone living with cancer is, what's their genetic heritage? Do they have what we often call the oncogenes in their DNA? Does their DNA contain the instructions to create cancer? There are some people that don't, and these are the people you hear about who smoke, 4 packs of cigarettes a day for 30 years and never get cancer. They're never going to get cancer. Their DNA doesn't permit it to happen. But most of us have the oncogene to some degree. Now, some families have it a lot. I know families where every generation has multiple cancer patients, but that's fairly uncommon. But if you've got the oncogene, then you have to be careful about those things in your lifestyle that may predispose to the expression of the oncogene, and you end up with cancer. For example, diabetes predisposes to a whole raft of medical problems. Gout, which I happen to have, predisposes to a whole host of cancers, because the fact that I have a problem regulating uric acid in my bloodstream turns out to impinge upon my DNA in such a way that it encourages the expression of the oncogene, which is why I basically lead a cancer-healthy lifestyle. I have a study here that I've just found fascinating from the National Institutes of Health called Epigenetics and Lifestyle. And it's got a long list of contributors, but I'll let you dig it out yourself from the website of the National Institutes of Health, nih.gov. So one of the things they find in this study is that there are a lot of things that turn out to encourage or discourage the expression of the oncogene in the DNA. For example, certain foods. Folate and vitamin B12 turn out to be protective against cancer. Polyphenols, which you find in a lot of plant-based foods, are protective. Selenium is protective. On the other hand, obesity is more likely to encourage the expression of cancer, whereas physical activity discourages it. Tobacco, alcohol consumption, environmental pollutions like arsenic, air pollution, various kinds of hydrocarbons like automobile or diesel exhaust. And shift work, which I thought was interesting. If you have an irregular sleep pattern, that encourages the expression of the oncogene. And finally, stress. Situational stress turns out to encourage the onset of cancer. Much of medical hypnosis is actually sophisticated forms of stress management so that you don't have the deleterious effect of the stress impinging upon your DNA, encouraging the expression of all kinds of things which are not good for you. So, what can you do to protect yourself using epigenetics? Well, two things stand out. A healthy lifestyle, yeah, plant-based foods and whole foods and that sort of thing. Transparent relationships. If your relationships are healthy and you get along well with your partner and they're transparent, there's not a lot of secrets, there isn't lying going on, there isn't manipulation going on. If your relationships are even and transparent, that lowers your level of situational stress, and that encourages your DNA to express itself in a healthy way rather than an unhealthy way. Some of the people living with cancer I work with often talk about taking my advice and doing what they call weeding in the friendship garden. That is, going through your friendships and deciding, this one's got to go. This is not a healthy relationship for me. Another concept which is coming out of actually the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and queer community, transgender community, is something called chosen family. If you come from a family that's basically a train wreck, and being with those people is not healthy for you, don't be with those people. Instead, choose people, friends, acquaintances, that are good for you and spend time with them. It is healthy behavior, not unhealthy behavior, to avoid people who are bad for you. Because if you avoid people who are bad for you, you're lowering your level of situational stress, and you therefore discourage the expression of anything in your DNA which is not healthy for you. We also know that in the DNA molecule, there are structures at the top of it called telomeres. The longer they are, the more protection a person has against an inflammatory condition. Cancer, among other things, is often understood now as an inflammatory condition, but so is diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, and lots of other things. Stress is one of the things that causes the telomeres to shrink. And the shorter they get, the more likely it is that there will be substantial inflammation present in the body, predisposing the DNA to express bad things, and bad things will happen. Stress hormones directly modify DNA. We produce hormones called glucocorticoids that actually do express change the chemistry of your brain. For example, children who were born to mothers who went through the Dutch famine from 1944 to 1945 have increased coronary disease and heart disease and obesity against the general population. If their mothers were exposed to the famine in the early stages of pregnancy, the children born probably after the famine was over turned out to have heart disease, obesity, and a whole bunch of other medical problems because their DNA expression was modified by the experience of their mothers. And adults who are exposed to famine conditions turned out to have a much higher incidence of schizophrenia than the general population because the experience of the famine caused modifications in the brain which encouraged the DNA epigenetically to express the base pairs that predispose to schizophrenia. So the meaning of all of this is that relaxation really is the heavy artillery in epigenetics. The thing you can do using epigenetics to protect yourself from a whole batch of bad things is relax. Don't be tightly wound. And nothing helps you relax as much as hypnotism. Not meditation, not sleep. Hypnotism is the superpower that brings relaxation into the human mind and human body. And that increases the chance that your DNA will express itself in a way that's good for you as opposed to bad for you. So thank you very much for your attention. I will be back next Saturday with another talk. I'm going to be talking at that point about self-hypnosis and how you can put together a self-hypnotic practice. If I can be of help to you by life coaching or through hypnotism, please feel free to reach out to me. And when I edit this to put it up on my YouTube channel, my website will appear, but it's www.csgiles.org. Thank you for your attention. Please like and share this video, and take care.